If you have ever tried to work with Twitter's API for any serious project, you just know how brutal the pricing is. In order to fetch details for 15,000 tweets, you're looking at a bill of $200 a month. And once you exceed that limit, you're then hit with a massive jump up to $5,000. For many different automation projects, that simply is not feasible. So today, I'm going to show you a much cheaper and more flexible alternative. I'm going to walk you through how to build a Twitter scraping system using both n8n and Apify that will only cost you 40 cents per 1,000 tweets that you scrape. Make sure that you stick around until the end of this video because I'm also going to show you how we use this Twitter scraping system to power and write our newsletter here at The Recap. I want to get started here by doing a quick demo of each of the 3 scraping use cases we've built out here. The first one is going to be scraping tweets by username. Number 2 is going to be scraping tweets by a provided search query. And then number 3 is going to be scraping tweets by a given Twitter list URL. So let's start off with the first one here to grab tweets by a username. I'll click on execute. I'll put in the username I want to scrape and give a number here for the number of tweet results I do want to get back. Submit this to kick this off. And we're going to see this node running here that's actually reaching out to Apify to get that scraped data back to us. Once that finishes, we're going to take those results, load it into a Google Sheet that we can see over here. So if we scroll down, we got our 5 results that came in, all from the Lucas automation account that I specified. And if we pull this up, we can take a quick look at the text content and see that everything here matches what's added in this text field on the right-hand side. In addition to that, we also have a bunch of engagement stats that were able to be pulled in as well, like the retweet count, the reply count, and the like count, all came in from that Apify integration and API call. Let's move on to the next one. Let's quickly run through the second one now to see what we can get back from a given search query. The way this works is just like the search function on Twitter and x.com. You paste in a search query like, best AI tools, go to the top, and the results that come back up here are going to match what our system is going to be scraping. So let's jump over here to the workflow again and see what this looks like. I'll start it. We'll paste in our search query like released AI research paper. And then once again, we're going to give it a limit for the number of tweets we want to get back. We'll start this to kick it off. And once again, we're reaching out to Apify to get those results back in a clean, easy to consume format for us to later process. Once those results do come back in, we're once again going to save that to our Google Sheet we have configured here on this other tab, and we can scroll through all of the top tweets under this top tab that match this given released AI research paper search query. So we can come in here, look through and see once again all of those stats, the tweet text, and the engagement stats that came from that search. So the last one that I want to show here is going to be scraping tweets by a provided Twitter list. This is super useful if you've manually curated a list of people that you like to follow on Twitter and want to get back a single result stream for all the tweets from those people. We actually use this here at The Recap to build out our news feed that we're scraping from. And so let me show you what that looks like. If I go over to Twitter, go to The Recap, we can go to this account, see our AI news list that we've configured here that has 400 people that we're following, grab the URL of this Twitter list, and then we can start this workflow, paste that list back into the input here, and give another number. I'm going to do 10, submit this, and then let this automation run once again. So like the other two, we're going to Apify to scrape this with that provided Twitter list. We're going to get those 10 results, and then once again, append that into our Google Sheet. So here we go. We can see all of the different people that we have on this Twitter list have their tweets coming in, and we have the full text of that tweet as well. Hey, just so you know, we're actually giving away this entire n8n automation template completely for free. This includes the nodes you see here that can be directly plugged into any automation that you're working on, the setup instructions, and how to customize this even further. All you have to do is join our free community called AI Automation Mastery. To join, click on that first link in the description of the YouTube video to get in. Then you're going to go to this YouTube n8n resources tab to find the video that matches the title of this one, pull it up, and then you're going to be able to download this JSON file and import it into your own n8n instance. Super easy to do. We have a great community here of people building and sharing their own workflows, so highly encourage you to do it. Next up, I want to take you guys through a more technical walkthrough that's going through each of these scenarios again and show you how to use the Apify API to start scraping Twitter data. This is a pretty simple setup compared to some of the other n8n workflows we've built in the past. So most of the magic happening here is going to be how we consume and use the Apify API. Let me also briefly explain what Apify is and why it's the perfect tool for this scraping use case. Apify is this web scraping and automation platform built around this pre-built concept called actors. You can think of these as specialized tools designed to extract data from specific websites, almost like mini APIs, all hosted on a single Apify platform. So if we go in here and search for Twitter, we can see that there's a number of results that come back, all for scraping different types of data off of Twitter. There's a profile scraper, there is this tweets and profile scraper, all built and maintained by different community members. For our use case and what we built in our n8n automation, we're going to use this tweet scraper v2 maintained by API Dojo. We can see here that it gives us 1,000 tweets back only for 40 cents, much cheaper than actually paying X or Twitter $5,000 a month for similar results. Let's now go through each of these nodes under number 1 here to scrape tweets by username. I'm going to go ahead and run this again to get it started so we can see what the input data and the output data looks like on Apify. So I'll do Lucas Automation. Let's do 5 tweets back, submit this, and then execute this HTTP request node here calling in to Apify. So I'll load this up and we can look a little bit of what's going on. So the first thing we see here is going to be this post request we're making into api.apify.com. Coming a little bit further here down the path of this request, we can see that we're referencing API Dojo tweet scraper. That's the part of the URL that we're building here that tells us that we're going to be using this specific actor on Apify's platform. After that, we're then calling this operation we want to run on the Apify API to get our data items back from whatever scraping operation we're doing. So let's switch over to Apify and show you an easy way to get this URL when you're trying to build out this scraping operation manually or using a different actor for your own workflows. So coming to Apify, and let's pull up the actor once again. In order to get this URL, you just need to go to API endpoints, and then look for the one down here that's making a post request to run actor synchronously and get dataset items. I really like to use this one because it's just more simple to hook in and implement in my n8n workflows. You could optionally use just run actor and then set up some polling mechanism to later get those results back. But if we do this one called run actor synchronously and get dataset items, all we have to do is use one single node, pass in some input data, and we're going to get all that scraped results back in a single JSON response. Very easy to use, very easy to set up. Highly recommend this. So when we're going through here, we can just copy this URL to run the sync result and get dataset items back, paste that into the URL here, and then we'll be able to proceed. The next part about getting this set up is going to be adding authentication and authorization to use the Apify API. I like to use a generic credential type so I can save and reuse this on later nodes. This is going to be header authentication according to the API docs we have set up here. And so if we scroll down here under the API docs under Apify, under API, we can see we have this authentication tab that gives us all of the instructions here. They do offer it in 2 ways, but I would suggest just go ahead and use the header auth since that's more standard. The other thing we need to note here is going to be what header value we need to specify. This says you can either pass in the token via the header authorization HTTP header, which is exactly what we want. So let's make a new credential here and go through that process together. So this will be a generic credential type, header auth, like what we said before, and let's click on create new credential. So Apify2, I'll just, for my name, we want to paste in the name authorization here, just like their docs mention. And then we need to go out and get our API key from Apify in order to make this request. So if we come here in Apify, go to settings, API and integrations, you're going to be able to copy your personal API token here and then specify that in your own n8n account and for this credential that you're making. So paste that in, save that, and then use that for your full setup. I'm just going to use the one I have set up here, and that way we're able to proceed. So that's the main thing we need to do for setting up authentication here on a request. The next part of this is going to be building the request by passing in JSON content to the body. This is what we're going to use to be able to tell Apify and the specific actor that's scraping Twitter what kind of data do we need and what do we need to go out and look for on this Twitter scraping operation. So just at a brief overview here, we have this simple JSON object we're passing in and two dynamic properties we have set up that are going to be max items, that is coming from the limits value we've specified on the form input from before, and then this other one below here, which is the important thing to note for scraping by Twitter username. This is going to be called Twitter handles. It's going to be an array of values that get passed in. And so in theory, if you wanted, you could do another one here, like Lucas, the automator, not a real account, but if you wanted to build it this way, you could scrape from multiple usernames all at once. But for us, since we want one username going in, we still specify an array and only add that single item to it. So we can see here on the right-hand side for the request that's getting made, we're going to ask Apify to give us 5 items back and only from these Twitter handles. Looking here, there's a lot of other options too, and that's where it gets a little bit more confusing, and this is how you can further customize the data you really want back from this scraping job. So let's go to Apify again and let me show you something else that's going to make this a little bit easier to build. So under our actor that we have set up here, most actors have this manual option provided here that lets us use the Apify UI to build out different options that we want to scrape. And so I have my handle here for Twitter handles. Let's do Lucas the Goat, and let's scrape from Elon as well. And after we have these data items set in the UI, we can come up here, switch over to JSON, and then Apify is going to give us this updated JSON structure that we can copy and paste back into our n8n workflow for the request we want to build out. So this makes it really easy to test and iterate on directly from the Apify UI instead of having to go back and forth, face errors building the request, and then get stuck. So let me just remove this again and show you how to test in Apify. So once you have those values specified, it can be either through the JSON editor or through manual. I'm going to switch back to manual. You can click on start here, and that's going to do something very similar to what we're doing with the API, but it's going to kick off that actor, fetch the results, and show them all in here. And so before you're trying to move into n8n, make sure you have your parameters all configured exactly as you want to, just to make it easier to build this full section out. So once again, we get our results coming back from the Lucas Automation Twitter account, and we have all of this extra metadata that comes with it as well. We can view it in table mode, JSON mode to see what that looks like, and we have our scrape data at our fingertips. So this all looks good. Let's move on now to automation number 2, which is going to be setting up our scraping process for the getting tweets by a search query. So let's once again click on execute step here to start the trigger and get some data in and out for action number 2. So we're going to start this, click on execute step to make our Apify HTTP request so we can see the data going in and going out. If we blow this JSON option up a little bit right here, we're going to see that there's a little bit of a different setup here compared to scraping results by a username. For this one, we're still passing in our max items. This should actually be coming from our limit here, so I'll drag that in. We're going to have false on a number of different options with the exception of only Twitter Blue and only verified users. The goal of this is going to be filtering out some of the spam or low quality, low signal posts that come up when just doing a regular search. And so we want search results coming back, especially for something like AI research papers from people who are verified business accounts, verified users that have a stronger chance of actually giving us some reasonable data back that we're going to make use of. We don't want these junk tweets coming in that are going to eat up our scraping credits. And so this gives us a pretty easy filter. The other thing that we're going to be doing differently here is going to be, instead of providing usernames, we're going to provide the search terms array that takes in the search query passed in from the input of this automation. So if you're building this out and hooking it into your own automation, you can do it any other way you want. Just for the sake of the example here, we're going to use that form trigger. Let's go to Apify again and show how to build this out in the manual tab and then get that JSON back from it. So for this one, don't really want to scrape Twitter handles. We can come down to the bottom here into this filter section and check on only verified users and Twitter Blue users to include in those results so we can avoid those, spammy, low quality posts coming in. And then we can look for the section here that is going to allow us to specify a search query. Looks like it's going to be search terms up here, and we can sanity check this by just reading the tooltip here. So search terms you want to search from Twitter or X, you can refer to this advanced search option here if you want to build out a more detailed query. And so just like on the Twitter UI, you can use all of this query language and syntax here to, only get tweets from that reference a certain URL. I'm not going to cover all this, but if you're working on a more advanced workflow, highly recommend you read this to figure out how to build that ideal query. Also have a couple tips and tricks here on the left-hand side. If you download this automation from our community, that's going to give you some setup instructions on how to use this a little bit better. So that's what we're going to do. Let's just paste in a simple one for now. So our released AI research paper, and then tab over to JSON mode. And so we're going to see something that looks very similar to the JSON we just built out here. So I'll pull that up once again. The other difference of this that I forgot to mention is going to be the sorting option. So that's just like what is appearing at the top of the tabs here on Twitter if you are doing a search. So if I do released AI research papers, we can do top, we can do latest, we can go by people. That's what that option means when you're trying to build out your own search query on Twitter for your scraping operation. So that's really all there is to it. Again, we're going through the flow of starting an Apify, using this manual builder to get the ideal search query for our scraping operation. We're going to tab over to JSON, copy this, and then paste that into our real request here, and then slot in any dynamic parameters that we need to coming from our input trigger, that's the form, or some other source if we're going to be hooking this up into our own n8n automation that's running at a bit of a larger scale. So that's really all there is to it. We're going to run that API call to get data back from Apify. And then if we see here on the right-hand side under our output, we can get a tweet result back that contains all of that data and metadata we need related to that tweet. So of course, we got the ID, the URL it's pointing to. We have the full text of that tweet and metadata like those engagement stats that we were capturing and saving from before. The last part of this is just going to be a very simple Google Sheets operation that we've connected up. We're going to append a row and just manually map each of those values on our Google Sheet to the value that's coming back from that Apify API response. Very simple to use. You can do anything you want really with this data, like save it to Supabase, to Airtable, to your data lake, really anything you want. It's just going to depend on your specific use case and what you're trying to do with this scraped Twitter data. Last but not least, let's go into number 3 here, where we scrape tweets by a provided Twitter list. So execute step. We're going to grab our Twitter list URL that we want to scrape. So let me clean this up. So we have that there, and that's our Recap AI news list that we've manually curated ourselves. We're going to go ahead and paste in 10, submit this, and kick off that request. So this is going to run, and let's inspect the JSON data we're passing in here a little bit in more detail. So once again, to clarify, we're still using this exact same URL calling into API Dojo where we run sync get dataset items. That doesn't change between any of these requests. The main thing we're changing here is still going to be the JSON body that we pass in. So once again, we're doing something a little bit differently. We're not pasting in a list of usernames. We're not pasting in a search query, but we're going to actually use the start URLs option here to get that URL list and pass that through. Let's go back to Apify and show you how we can build this out. And so much like you would assume, we're going to use start URLs up top here. And if you're trying to figure this out for the first time, really look at the tooltips as it's well documented on what you need to do and what can be pasted into here. And so click on the tooltip and it's going to say Twitter or x.com URLs, paste in the URLs and get results back immediately. So this can be a tweet, a profile, a search result, or a list of URLs that are supported. And so let's go ahead and just paste in our Twitter list and see if we can get anything back. I think that covers it for everything we have set up. And so we have, latest sort set up. We want English coming back. Let's go ahead and run this. So this is going to go ahead and get me back the latest 10 tweets from that list that we've provided. So we have those results back now, and just scrolling through here, each of these accounts do look like ones that we've manually curated ourselves, and so that's working as expected. So now if we go back to our input here, let's go ahead and copy this JSON. And if you're building this out for the first time, you'd be following this exact same flow, where you copy this input JSON that's going to be sent to Apify, paste it in here, and then swap out any dynamic values you need to, such as the Twitter URL list coming from our initial form submission. So that gets filled in nicely here. We run it, and we get those 10 results back exactly as we're expecting. The last thing that I want to cover here is how you can use Twitter scraping nodes like we went over before and hook it into a real life system that has real business value. The case I want to cover here is the Recap AI newsletter, where we have this scheduled trigger set up that's running every single hour to get news from Twitter back that we can later save into our data lake. And so on this ingestion system, we're scraping from all different sources over the internet, but Twitter is what we have covered at the top here. So we have that scheduled trigger run. We're going to go ahead and get tweets from a timeline and then pass it through a little bit more data cleanup, where we evaluate the tweet if it is really applicable to something that our audience is going to care about. So we get that decision, we filter out any tweets that aren't relevant, and then we loop over each of those results. And in this node here, we're uploading that tweet data into our data lake. And so that's the system that's set up, where every single day we're capturing all this data from Twitter, saving the relevant ones into our data lake so we can bundle it up and query for it later on when we go to write our newsletter. And then here's what that looks like in our real n8n workflow that is generating that entire newsletter. And so the first node here is reaching back out to that data lake, where we're going to load up all the data that's been scraped, filter out anything that is not applicable, and then finally take all of that content and combine it together into plain text that can be passed in to an LLM where we do further prompting. And so if we look ahead here, we see that we're picking out the top stories for the day. We're going to write a great subject line and then iterate over each of those stories to build out a section of our newsletter that gets sent out to 10,000 people every single day. And so that's it at a high level. We've actually made a video about this that covers it in much more detail that I highly encourage you to go out and watch. We've shared the n8n templates for that, so all you got to do is join that free school community to get access to that. We'll link it somewhere up here, and hope you guys dive into that and get some value out of it. Thanks for watching.
All right, before you go, make sure to hit the like and subscribe button. Seriously, do it, because we're going to be breaking down all of the AI automations that we use to run all of our businesses. They're super helpful, and we're going to break down exactly how we do them on this YouTube channel. So make sure like and then subscribe, and then you'll get notified when we publish new workflows that can make your businesses run 20 times more efficiently, just like we're seeing here at the Recap and the other businesses that we're running. The other item is join our school community for free. The link's in the description. You'll be able to get this template, this automation that we just ran through in this video, completely for free. You can go to school and navigate to the video that you want, and then you can download the JSON output for the n8n automation. With that, you can upload it into your n8n, clone it, and then tune it for your business and your use cases. So like and subscribe, join our free community to get this automation for yourself, and we'll see you in the next video.